You are looking live at Green Bay, Wisconsin, the home of this year's NFL Draft, set to get underway in less than 30 minutes. 32 names will be called tonight in round one. The man in charge of picking whose dreams come true with the Buffalo Bills, General Manager Brandon Beane. His team currently holds the 30th pick, but is trading up out of the question. You'll hear his answer just ahead in our one-on-one conversation. Buffalo's War Room sitting in the shadow of their new $2 billion stadium under construction across the street. A Bills pick tonight could secure that player a career inside the stadium set to open for the 2026 season. Leading the charge in the countdown to the 2025 NFL Draft starts right now. Welcome to Draft Day, everyone. Hello, I'm 7 Sports Director Matt Bove, joined as always by Simon, Joe Buscaglia. Thank you for joining us as we get ready for the NFL Draft, which is only about a half an hour away. If I sound different, it's because I lost my voice earlier today. We've got all of the medicine here. We've got throat coat, we've got throat lozenges, and we've got whatever this generic cold remedy is. So we are situated here, and you're in a hat.
Yeah, I'm just trying to make a little extra money from Channel 7, so this is all about branding. So big tip of advice, everybody. You can get sunburn when it's 50 degrees outside in April, so always put sunscreen on, which I didn't do on Sunday. You don't want to see the big tomato that's on top.
All right, so I'm screwed up. He's got sunburn. What's wrong with you? Anything?
Oh, now
yeah.
island.
Yeah, Mr. Calm and Cool over here.
No, it's the draft. There's nothing calm and cool about it.
Must be nice. All right, let's show you what the Bills have scheduled for this evening. They have 10 picks for the entire weekend, 1 pick tonight, 2 picks tomorrow, and then 7 picks on day 3 of the drafts. I would be shocked if they actually use all of those picks. Now, how about Brandon Beane's track record when it comes to first-round picks? Well, he kind of hit a grand slam in his first draft as the Bills GM with Josh Allen and Tremaine Edmonds. There have been some hits along the way. There have been some misses. That brings us to now. They need to find an impact player with whatever position they take. I want to start with defensive tackle, gentlemen, because we have spent a lot of time talking about that position into this process. Any guys in particular you want to start with who you think you run up the card, they absolutely make the most sense? You can start, Joe.
Yeah, I think for me, Derek Harmon makes the most sense of all the guys we could potentially see them go for, because what he can do on the field and how versatile he can be. He can play a little bit of 3 technique. You can base him as a 1 technique. And for those that aren't familiar with that terminology, 1 technique is basically like the bigger run stuffer guy that sets up his teammates and takes on double teams, everything like that. And is able to set up his teammates to make some stops in the run game. So he can do that. He's a 3-down player, and which is important to them for versatility's sake. So Harmon to me is one of those guys where it's like, if he's on the board at 30, that's one of those where you're like, all right, that makes so much sense for everything that they need. The problem is, I don't know if he's going to be there at 30.
Sure. And there's the same conversation about another big-time defensive tackle who a lot of Bills fans are in love with, Howard.
Yeah, you're talking about Kenneth Grant?
Yeah, for sure.
No, they can't take Kenneth Grant, and here's why. My son went to Michigan State, and Kenneth Grant went to that other school on the other side of the state. Legally, I am unable to have the Bills pick anybody who played for that other school in Ann Arbor.
All right.
I'm with Joe. Now where did Derek Harmon start his career?
Michigan State.
But he had his breakout year at Oregon. Now, Joe made some really good points. Look, I think most Bills fans would love a run-stuffing defensive tackle to plug in there, although Daquan Jones is still here, but eventually to plug in there next to Ed Oliver. Derek Harmon can do that. See, but you also need to help your pass rush, right? I mean, that there's a dual purpose has to be covered here. And based on whoever's scouting report you read, Harmon might be one of the best or the best passer of the 1 technique guys in this year's draft. So he's got good first step quickness. He's got good hands. He's got good size. He's got good length. But he can hold up against the run. Single blocks, double blocks. So I just think he's an all-around guy that to me would be a really good fit.
I don't think we need to talk about Walter Nolan. He's another guy that gets pretty commonly brought up, but that doesn't seem realistic, right?
I don't know. He might seem realistic. I mean, he might be gone off the board, but I found it really interesting. And something I've been thinking about the entire offseason is where the Bills view Dwayne Carter, their 3rd-round pick from last year. because last year was mostly a 3 technique, and the notion this offseason was they need a 1 technique to take over for Daquan Jones when he's done. But I asked Brandon Beane point blank on Tuesday, and he essentially said, he's one of those guys that we're going to figure out where his home base is after the draft to see who we take. So I think that opens up the entire scope here. I still think they want someone who can play a bit of both, but if someone is rooted at 3 technique and can moonlight at 1 technique here and there, I think that opens up that world. And I do think Walter Nolan can do that because he's a good run defender.
Now let's switch to cornerback, because that's another position that I think a lot of Bills fans are paying attention to. Max Harrison from Kentucky feels like he could be a player the Bills would be interested in. Do you agree?
I liked him. The guy I like actually is Barron, Jahdae Barron.
Yeah,
but I know
you like
Joe. I talked to both you guys, and he might not be around at that pick. If he is,
he's the
that would
least
be my
likely.
first choice. But I would take him if he's at 30.
Sure.
So if he's not, I like Hairston. He's not the tallest guy in the world. He's listed, I think, at 5'11"-ish, but a 2-year starter, back-to-back All-SEC. Had a bunch of interceptions 2 years ago. His numbers were down a little bit this year, but he missed a handful of games with an injury. But he can play zone. He can play man. He does have 3 picks returned for a touchdown, so he's got some playmaking ability. And he's not a great tackler. But I love how they put, he's got the want to. He will be happy to help out in run support. You're going to have to work with him on his tackling. But we know, right, run support, tackling is a big thing for the
Howard
corner.
read the beast with the want to.
I read the Dane Brugler guy from the Athletic.
But the funniest part about that was, as part of his strengths for that, it said his want to improve.
That's right.
Exactly.
That's right.
Yeah.
But
I don't know if it's a strength.
But you guys know, I mean, that made me a little nervous because the Bills want their corners to be good tacklers and help out in run support.
Trey Amos is the guy that I think Bills fans are like, take him at 30. Why is he such a good fit for the Bills?
I mean, he just checks all the boxes for what they want. He feels somewhat safe in that respect. I do think that he's kind of a tier below some of these earlier guys like Jahdae Barron, who you brought up. Will Johnson's another one who I think could be pretty appealing if his drop continues. Sure. But Trey Amos, to me, I mean, if you go back and look and, average out the average heights, weights, and arm lengths, which, of course I did.
Joe does.
Trey Amos is basically a perfect match for every single one of those. He's just a shade over 6 foot, which is what they look for. Just a shade. He's at 195, and their average is just under 195. And arm length, he's just below it. They're usually at 31.5. He's at 31.25. So, it's a perfect match from that perspective. And he's also really proficient in zone, but also has the ability to flip to man. Harrison is fine because he's super fast, but you don't need that in the zone where I think Amos can kind of give you the best of both worlds, the instincts. He's a better run defender than Hairston, and I do think that you can utilize him in a lot of different ways.
A lot of the national mock guys, my voice is a mess here. A lot of the national mock guys think that safety is an option for the Bills, and Malachi Starks is the name they keep bringing up. When you initially hear that, what do you think? Because I'm like, I don't see it.
I don't want it. I understand it. I get the logic. I'm going to assume it's something about you got Bishop. Rap's not necessarily a long-term answer. This will be your next Hyde-Poyer combo, Bishop and the guy you take. I really don't think that's a good idea. I think you have a major need at cornerback, and you have a really good-sized need up front on the defensive line. I would not address safety.
All right, so we'll see how it, of course, all plays out. Obviously, a lot of different ways they can go. Now, as for another player from Western New York who is waiting to figure out how his career will go, we're talking about West Seneca native Shaun Dolac, who is kind of on the fringe of being a day 3 pick, one of the best players in UB football history. Well, my colleague Dom Tibbetts met up with Shaun Dolac to talk about his journey to the NFL and why he's built for this moment.
On this very field, West Seneca native Shaun Dolac went from being a walk-on to a starter and then an All-American for the UB Bulls football team. However, getting to that point and getting to where he is now did not come without adversity and tragedy. But through it all, Dolac found a way to turn that tragedy into triumph.
Looking back on everything I've gone through and every adversity, every milestone that I've been through, I could say that I didn't give up through all of it, and because of that, that's where I am today.
Despite being an All-American linebacker, Dolac did not win the Burlsworth Trophy this past year, an award given out to the best college football player who started as a walk-on.
It was a little discouraging at the time, but to me, it was just another bump in the road that I have to get over, and it's not the end of the world,
Through all of that, Dolac's faith in the pursuit of his dream never wavered, likely the result of this conversation with his father.
It's like no matter what you do, just always stay humble and never give up.
In 2016, Shaun's father, John, passed away from cancer. Fast forward 8 years, Shaun took his father's words to heart and delivered one of the greatest single-season performances in the history of UB football.
Over the middle, there's an interception. It's Shaun Dolac. Dolac showing off some skills. Dolac to the end zone. What a return! A pick six.
But would you believe me if I told you Shaun's world was once again rocked by tragedy less than 8 months before the start of that sensational campaign?
A good buddy of mine, actually, his name is Andrew, and he would light up a room in an instant. But he was battling some mental struggles, and he decided to take his own life in December last year.
I just remember the last UV game, and Andrew was with us, and how happy he was just to be there and support Shaun, and he just meant so much to our family.
It was Uncle Shawnee. Whoa!
I think everything that I've gone through is just extra motivation to continue to pursue, my dreams and realities. And honestly, it's been a journey and it's been amazing. And I wouldn't ask to do it with anybody else, any other team and any other family.
So where will Dolac end up? That one we're just going to have to wait and see. But I can tell you that everybody in Western New York is pulling for Shaun to finally turn those dreams into a reality. At UB Stadium, Dom Tibbetts, 7 Sports.
All right, thank you, Dom. Who knows? Maybe it'll be Brandon Beane drafting Shaun Dolac this weekend. Speaking of, we're going to hear from the Buffalo Bills general manager coming up on the other side of the break. Are they moving up? Are they moving back? What are they going to do? All that and more in just minutes.
Leading the Charge is brought to you by Kubota. Together, we do more. Charge Draft Special is brought to you by Salino Law.
told my agent, man, I was like, look, if you can't get Buffalo on the line, just don't call me. So we were able to do it, and man, I was ready to go. Like, I was so excited. My entire family is excited. They were so excited to go into their attics, unbox those Buffalo blue jerseys. This place is so special, so special to my family too. That this is the only place that I really want to be, and do it the right way. Hopefully we get a Super Bowl here, and I'll be a part of it.
You can tell just how much Western New York means to Tre'Davious White. So obviously a lot of fans very excited to bring him back. Now, the man who brought him back is Buffalo Bills general manager Brandon Beane. He made that decision a week ago. Now he's got an NFL draft to get ready for in just about a half an hour. Well, we caught up with him just about an hour ago and asked him, how does today go? What positions are you impressed with? And hey, any chance you're going to make a move? First off, what do you do on draft day to kind of clear your mind a little bit? It's going to be a pretty crazy day.
Yeah, I mean, part of it depends on the weather.
Yeah.
We struck gold this year. This is great. So went over to the golf course and hit some range balls. It felt good to just get out there and get a lather going.
Is it just kind of fighting off the nerves, the anxiousness, the impatience of like, how does today play out? There's going to be a lot of emotions tied to today.
Well, I struggle just sitting still. So it's either sit at home, come on in here and start over, analyze, like the work's done. We just got to wait for it to play out. So that's something just to take my mind off it. Don't mess with the phone. Just get out there, and that's my safe haven.
Yeah.
Yeah, me and the animals and the golf balls.
What is today like for a general manager? What are the conversations that you're having really over the course of the time that you're on the range up until when the first round actually starts?
Yeah, I mean, it's various. It's, you're talking to contacts with other teams, whether it's your buddies, people you've worked with, other GMs. What are you hearing? We may be interested in coming to your pick, whether that's up or back. Would you guys be interested in moving up? Would you be interested in moving back? Is this too far of a move up? All those things. And then, sometimes you're setting the framework. Hey, if it made sense for you and for us, this is what I'm thinking it would cost. Does this make sense to you? And you don't finalize anything, but you at least lay out some parameters.
So for you guys, you have 10 picks. You've been known to move around the draft board.
Yeah.
Do you feel like you want to be active this year and moving up, back, kind of figuring out the best way to utilize those 10 assets?
Yeah, that's the key. You want assets to go in to allow you in whatever rounds they are. Hey, you think there's a lot of value in this round. Maybe you stand still, but maybe there's another round where you're like, man, there's only a couple guys I like at this value. Let's move up and get one of them that we're really excited about because we think there's a drop-off from a tier standpoint to the next level of player. So you're kind of just reading your board, and that's why it's so important that you get it right and you set it up correctly before this thing even gets started.
You've said in the past, hey, I think we're more likely to trade up. Hey, I think we're more likely to trade back. Do you have a feeling today or this year?
Not really. I mean, it's just, again, the farther you are back, the harder it is. And I know we've been back here before, but, this is not once you get past the first 3 or 4 picks, some years you can almost reel off 8 or 9 of the first picks, which, the more clarity there, that's closer to your pick, the more clarity you have on what's going to happen. So with us picking at 30 and only really kind of having a good feel of like kind of those first 4 or 5 picks, I really don't have a great feel.
What are the positions that you were impressed with in this draft class?
Yeah, I mentioned the other day, I think it's a good D-line class. I think there's a lot of variety with edge players, whether it's you want a guy to set the edge, you want a guy who's more of a DPR. There's obviously some 3-down players that are good at both. They cost more. But there are specialties, guys that can do both as you move down. And the same thing with the interior, whether it's 2-down players that are, big, long, strong dudes, or some guys with some twitch inside that can give you another inside pass rusher.
How about the secondary? You guys just went out, you brought back Tre'Davious White. I know you've made some moves in that area so far, but what do you think about the secondary as a whole in this draft class?
Yeah, I think there's guys. I do. I'm not going to say it's the deepest class by any means. The other part of that is with any position that there's names, but sometimes guys are dealing with medical. Sometimes they're non-fits for how you want to play. There's things like that. So people may say, hey, God, there's a lot of names, but, we're not going to go out and put out there things at whatever position that is that, there are, but there's a lot of depth, but there's 4 guys with serious medical, issues, which can really thin out a group.
What do you need to accomplish over the course of the next 3 days?
We just need to get better, add good players, follow our board, and, find the right players that are the best fits for the Buffalo Bills. We don't draft for the league. We draft for us. What we look for, DNA plus the fit on whichever side of the ball we're selecting for.
That is Buffalo Bills General Manager Brandon Beane. Good luck this weekend. Thank you for joining us. All right, I appreciate Brandon Beane for taking the time literally right before he's getting ready to conduct a draft. My big takeaway from the interview, I think they're making a trade, and I think they're making a trade up, which conveniently leads us into our final segment when we tell you who we think the Buffalo Bills are going to draft in the first round tonight. You are looking live at Green Bay. That is where all the action is happening with all the prospects and everything going on. But here in Buffalo, it's going to be pretty busy too. Don't go anywhere. You're watching a special edition of Leading the Charge right here on 7 ABC.
Leading the Charge Draft Special is brought to you by 716 Cash and Metro Roberts Realty. Leading the Charge Draft Special is brought to you by Catalyst Fitness.
When the Buffalo Bills are on the clock later tonight, they'll make not one, but two dreams come true. That is because they have invited a special guest to announce their first-round draft pick. The team surprised 16-year-old Tommy Parzamiso, an Orchard Park high schooler living with Duchenne muscular dystrophy, with the opportunity made possible in part by the Make-A-Wish organization. When we spoke with Tommy earlier this month, he said he is feeling nervous, but he's ready for his big moment. His prediction tonight, Tommy told us Brandon Beane should be taking a cornerback. We'll see how it plays out. All right, so Tommy thinks it's a cornerback, but Howard thinks it's going to be a defensive tackle.
Yeah, you know why? Because the primary need is cornerback, and Brandon Beane just said you better get your corner. So whatever. I'll stick with pass rush. I'll stick with defensive line. Derek Harmon, University of Oregon.
Yeah, Derek Harmon, I think, would be a really exciting fit for the Bills. If they stick at cornerback, though, at 30, who do you like?
Yeah, if they stay at 30, I think Trey Amos has a really strong case because he just has everything that they could possibly want, but he's not a high ceiling sort of player. So he's kind of that next tier of where they could go. But Amos, to me, he can play man, he can play his own. You know, he's got good ball production. He's good against the run. So I think that would be a very safe option at 30 if they had to stay there.
But I don't think they're going to stay there. I don't think any of us think they're going to stay there. Jahdae Barron, the cornerback from Texas. He's versatile. You can play a lot of positions. I know he's a little bit smaller than the prototypical corner, but the reminder that everybody makes, or the comparison, is Trent McDuffie, who is really, really good. So what I think the Bills are going to do is I think they're going to trade up, move a future second or a second from this year, and go get Jahdae Barron. And you tend to.
And two things: the Bills love Trent McDuffie that year, and also if they were to move up, Barron would be the guy I would move up for.
Is there any position we haven't talked about really quick that you could see them targeting? We got about a minute.
Edge rusher.
Yeah,
edge rusher.
Yeah.
Anybody we like? Anybody?
Donovan Azuruku.
Good job saying his name, and I'm so glad you did because I wasn't.
From Boston College. I don't think he'll be there. I think they're going to be just on the outside of that edge rusher mix, which is why I've kind of ruled it out. Wide receiver could be, but no, probably not.
I so want a wide receiver.
It would
be so much fun.
It would be the third straight year of a pass catcher with their top pick.
Well, it hasn't worked the last two. Maybe make it third time's a charm. Maybe that's what they got to ultimately do. All right, we'll see. Bills scheduled to make 10 picks over the course of the next 3 days, but they're not going to. Who knows? We don't even know if they're going to pick tonight. That is Joe Buscaglia from The Athletic. That is Howard Simon, our contributor. I am 7 Sports Director Matt Bove. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you for dealing with my ridiculous voice. The hat looks amazing, by the way. We hope you all have an amazing night. The draft is coming up next on Channel 7.
Josh will come up short again.
Throughout the entire offseason, it's going to be focusing on what can we do to bring Lombardi back here to Western New York.
Super excited to continue to be a Bill.
It's really got me excited.
I told my agent, if you can't get Buffalo on the line, just don't call me.
Who knows? In Beane we trust.